Molten core. I always wanted to be a hero growing up. With All Might's speeches, his heroics, his deeds, I had driven my mind to be just like him, my idol. But when the day I was supposed to draw my quirk came, that I wished it hadn't. What was that, Deku? Staring into the rage-filled gaze of Katsuki Bakugo as he approached with his two fellow bullies. Izuku Midoriya stared back with a sense of held-back rage himself as he fearfully tried to defend a student behind him, raised hands shaking in a mixture of rage and fear. The greenette stared at his old friend Kakin with a fearful stare. "Tu said I won't let you hurt him." Shaking his hands as they were held up in a defensive place, Bakugo gave a cruel laugh as he approached. Standing a head above Izuku, who gulped. "You're without an individuality, so," smacking a fist into his left palm to make an explosion. "Don't think yourself a hero, you useless good-for-nothing." With one punch, with an explosion doubling the pain, Izuku could feel the unknown anger within him rising. And despite the pain in his mind, a punch lashed out at Bakugo, who was stunned by the strike from the useless Deku. Reaching a hand to his nose that felt the full impact of Izuku's hit, a trickle of blood was dropping from his nose, which caused him to glare at the Deku, who was coughing on his hands and knees with quivering arms. "You hit me?" Glaring with murder now at Deku's hit, Katsuki reached for Izuku with a deep scowl as the boy before him was now coughing up blood, making the blonde stop at the sight with his anger replaced by shock and horror. Looking down to his hands, he went to help Izuku, who suddenly shot up to face his, stunning the bullies as his face was beet red, like he had suffered from a sunburn. That was the theory until his next words echoed between coughs. "It burns ** cough cough star. It burns." Clutching his chest as a glow began to manifest beneath his shirt, Katsuki backed away as smoke began to rise off of Izuku, whose hair now caught aflame with green fire, followed by his screams as his shirt blew up in flames, making all but Katsuki rush off to find a teacher, leaving Katsuki to watch as Izuku's face began to burn away like paper as red flames replaced the green. That day was the day where I felt the most excruciating pain, leaving me with the rage of a volcano ready to bring Gaia's wrath onto those who hurt the innocent. Letting out a rage-filled roar as the flames jettisoned into the sky, Katsuki was blown off his feet as Izuku stood on shaking feet, showing his now bared torso smoking as his head and lower arms held green and red fire, allowing the boy's screams to halt into a coughing fit that slowly eased into calm breaths, allowing Izuku to look at his hands, showing the skin to be cracks like magma. Reaching for his face, he gasped in horror as he felt the hardened bone of his skull, letting out screams of terror until his head was doused by a fire extinguisher, making him cough up the vile, tasting foam, allowing him to stare at a relieved-looking teacher who threw a blanket over his now restored form. "Midoriya, it's okay now, you're okay now." Feeling his heart rate slow to a crawl as his energy faded, Izuku Midoriya fell asleep, his quirk finally manifesting itself to him and the world. That day was the day my dream came to a mere walking distance. That day was the starting point of the future hero, known as Molten Core, the volcanic hero. 10 years later. Staring at the growing crowds from atop a building he had set up as his small getaway, Izuku Midoriya watched the sight of a thief with a gigantification quirk wreathed havoc over the city. Izuku stared at the sight with a frown at the heroes doing jack shit to keep the raging giant at bay. Sighing as he stood up from his seat, Izuku stared at the giant thief with a calculating gaze, his head and arms ignited into an emerald flame that removed his skin and muscle from his skull, leaving his neck cracked like molten rock. Taking an archer's stance, Izuku raised his right arm straight, aimed directly into the thief's head. His left hand was pointing with a sway with the wind. Narrowing his sight with a hum, Izuku's outstretched hand sent a spear of emerald fire that flew straight and true towards the thief, missing the hero Kamui Woods by a meter. The man was about to hold the thief with his quirk, only for the thief to get knocked unconscious from the kinetic force of the emerald fire, allowing Izuku to relax his flames while moving to get his school bag. Moving to a steel pipe, he slid down it to the street below, leaving the scene with no one the wiser. Sitting in class with his quirk notes splayed out in front of him, Izuku was noting down more notes of his own quirk, noting down how he managed to not burn another school shirt by concentrating the heat he generated. Izuku sighed with pride before he flipped his notes to another page that had few notes of the newest street hero Mount Lady. Shamefully enough, the sketch he made left the woman looking quite inviting, sighing while putting down his notes of a few-second observation of her arrival. To his KO move, Izuku was about to put down another note until he noticed a shadow looming over him among the chaos of the class celebrating. Looking up to see Kaken staring down at the sketch with a raised eyebrow, he looked to Izuku, who gave a nervous chuckle. "You better not be going pervert on me, Izzy." Slamming his notebook shut before anyone could see his sketch of Mount Lady, Izuku gave Katsuki a look of betrayal as the blonde gave a smirk of a prank gone as planned. "You think so low of me, Kaken. You blew a girl's skirt off by accident after a sneeze." Seeing his friend blush deeply with a scowl at the memory, he attempted to put Izuku into a headlock. "It was you who put pepper up my nose, and you know it. That was payback for when you blew up my notes." "It was an accident." Throwing Katsuki over his shoulder and onto a kid whose neck could extend, Izuku turned to Kaken, who gave a growl as he stood up before he was called to be in his seat. "You heading to the arcade later?" Stepping out of the classroom beside Katsuki, Izuku gave a shrug with a yawn. "Nah, I'm heading home to see what else I can do with my quirk." Seeing Katsuki scoff, he petted Izuku on the back. "Izzy, you can literally cook frozen food in your mouth." Giving off a snort at the memory, the two split up with Katsuki, giving him a half-ass salute. Giving one himself, Izuku walked his way home before he stepped out of a walkway above him. Looking over his notes, he failed to hear a whoosh behind him. "Hey kid, don't mind if I take over your body for a lil trial?" Moving to scream villain, Izuku's face was covered by slime as the villain behind him held him in place, forcing him to look into his eye. The villain was about to gloat if not for Izuku's flames igniting, startling the villain as he was forced to solidify, as Izuku held his throat with a rage-filled snarl. "Yeah, I do mind head-butting the bastard," who held his now bleeding nose and scorched face as it melted into slime. "You little bastard." Moving to hit Izuku, the villain froze as he stared into Izuku's lifeless skull as it roared with green fire. Showing his shirt burning away to show a chiseled body any girl would dream of caressing, the slime ball gave out a squeak before being pummeled unconscious. Allowing Izuku to relax his flames, looking down to his exposed upper body, he gave a curse to his carelessness until a sewer grate popped upward, making him turn to see his idol climbing out. "I am he." Seeing All Might stop and stare at the slime-covered villain groaning on the floor as a pile of, well, green slime, All Might turned to Izuku, who gave a small wave in his shock. "I am late, it seems." "I am fire." Izuku Quirk voice. All Might's voice. Staring at one's idol growing up in person could do many things to a person. They would either go from serious to a gushing fangirl/boy in seconds, or approach said idol to shake their hands in mutual respect. Izuku, well, he chose to be an oddity. Blushing deeply at being bare-chested in front of his idol, he did the only thing that made him comfortable without a shirt. He ignited his quirk while covering his upper body with his arms. "All Might." Cough. "All Might, sir, I knocked the slime guy out for you," gesturing to the now human thief lying on the ground. Tashinori Yagi blinked at the sight before turning to the green-flamed teen beside the thief before he smiled his All Might smile. "Thank you. Also sorry if he had caused you any trouble. It took me a bit of effort to get through the sewers." Looking to the sewer grate after it landed beside All Might, the two stared at the object before turning to the villain, who gave a groan. Looking to one another, they shrugged. "It's no trouble. If I get asked why I'm using my quirk, I can just say self-defense." Approaching the villain, who was slowly gaining a second wind, the man looked up to Izuku, who stomped on the man's head light enough to render him further unconscious. Hefting the man onto his shoulders, Izuku turned to see All Might smiling slightly. "He's all yours." Holding the man to the hero, All Might gave a nod of thanks. Watching the hero move to leap away, Izuku perked up as a question from in his head while looking to his glowing hands. All Might, looking up to the hero as he stopped and turned to him. "Yes? Would someone with a quirk like mine be able to be a hero, despite not knowing their limitations?" Looking to his hands as their glow dimmed into skin-colored hands, Izuku had a sad frown on his face that All Might took full notice to. "What do you mean, my boy?" Looking up to All Might with a frown, Izuku spoke with a sigh. "Whenever I go to test myself, I always feel like I'm breathing two lungs at once. Except these lungs feel larger, larger than even me. I feel my strength shift with each movement I make, clenching his fists to test the strength he felt. All Might took full notice to what could be his heart in his chest glowing beneath the skin. Staring at the boy with a trip down his memories, Toshinori frowned at the boy's fear of hurting others. It was when he saw himself in Izuku's place did he speak. "I may not know what you mean at the moment, but I know a place where you could see how your quirk works without harming anyone watching." All Might reach into his pocket. He gave Izuku a card with an address on the middle. "And to answer your question, it doesn't take much to be called a hero in today's era, but it doesn't mean that you should doubt yourself when trying." Turning to leap away with the thief in hand, All Might turned to Izuku, who stared at him from the card. All it takes is a leap of fa*** waving away the smoke that suddenly enveloped All Might. Izuku blinked at the sight of a near-death-looking man with very sharp features and long limbs, dropping the thief to catch his own weight. All Might swore at the poor timing before turning to Izuku, who stared at him in a deadpan look. Raising a hand to point at Toshinori, he spoke. "I take it this works like my quirk?" Seeing Toshinori blink, he spoke with a waterfall of blood leaking from his mouth that resulted in a coughing fit. "Yeah, cough, though I never really looked like this until 5 years back." Frowning at the man as he sat down beside the unconscious thief, Izuku stood as All Might slash Toshinori Yagi, told his tale of pain and woe. "This is a wound I got 5 years ago by the attack of a villain." Frowning in thought at seeing the scar, Toshinori continued as Izuku looked to his left hand as it ignited into green flames. Result: semi-destruction of my respiratory system and total removal of my stomach. Lowering his shirt to stare out to the city, he continued on, failing to see or even feel Izuku raise his shirt with the green flame. "My face is emaciated and haggard. My eyes are side effects of multiple surgeries. What the hell are you doing?" Jumping as Izuku shoved his green-flamed hand onto his wound, Toshinori gave a cough of blood before he felt his breathing clear up, and for the first time in 5 years he felt way too hungry. Looking down to Izuku's hand on his wound, his eyes widened as the scars of his surgery slowly but surely vanished with a green glow. Watching his wounds vanish, Izuku went to remove his hand before he yelped as a small, gold orb shot into his hand, making him shake his hand at the odd sensation, while Toshinori stared at Izuku before he smiled. "So, you chose yourself." It seems moving to get up with no pain in his body at all. Toshinori looked at his hands before flexing, his muscled form replacing his weak form with no issue at all. Making a gasp escape from his lips, he turned to Izuku, who gave a smile before he noticed a disgusting piece of flesh squirming on his left hand before he threw it to the ground. Getting a pain-filled screech from the thing, Izuku wasted no time setting it ablaze with green fire. Watching the sight of Izuku burning the thing that was once inside him, Toshinori suddenly had a worried thought at what Izuku had said before, about how he didn't know the full extent of his quirk. Placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, Izuku looked up to All Might, who had a smile full of nothing but hope and joy. "My boy, do you know what that jolt you felt upon healing me was?" Seeing Izuku give him a stunned and confused stare, he was about to answer until All Might spoke. "You, my boy, have just become my successor." Staring at his idol with wide eyes of awe and confusion, Izuku blinked several times before his mind gave him his answer. "Say what now?" "My boy, come with me. We're going to get to the bottom of your quirk and see just how much heat you can bring to a battlefield." 1 week later. Now standing in a military base's quirk-proof hangar deep underground, Izuku stared forward with a stunned amazement in his gaze. The base, known as Kasechi, was set a mile out of the city, a testing ground built for UA students who are recommended, and seeing as Izuku, after an explanation from Toshinori after he had fully introduced himself, stood in the hangar while a now healthier-looking All Might stood in an examination room with a man in general clothing beside the underground hero known as a Razorhead. The voice of Toshinori spoke through the intercom. startling Izuku by the suddenness. It is all right, Midoriya. We're simply testing the output of your quirk. You may think you cannot control this fire, but in truth you are its master. In other words, go all out. I'll be sure to shut off your quirk if need be, giving a nod to erase your head. Izuku shook his legs with his hands, inhaling deeply as he willed his fire to erupt over him. Breathing deeply as his flames grew, his heart slowly began to become witnessed as his shirt burned away, leaving his pants somehow untouched by the flames. Seeing this, the general looked to the temperature in the room as it grew in heat. Seems he can raise the temperature. It's at 100 degrees in there, and climbing. Turning to the general as he gawked at the temp gauge, Toshinori frowned at thinking of Endeavor, until he noticed the heat increase. Yagi, where exactly did you find this kid? In Mizudafu. Why? Well, from what I'm reading, he's bringing a volcano towards us, turning to erase your head with wide eyes. The general went to call for Izuku to stop, only for the hangar to explode with an inferno not even Endeavor could summon, with Izuku roaring in the center, melting the supposedly fireproof steel beams. Evacuate the base now? Boom. Case of the Aokis. Letting out a puff of effort while shoving debris off of himself and the general, Shoyuta gave the man a thankful nod before his eyes widened at the destruction around them, the ceiling thankfully not caving in on them thanks to the sturdy support beams. Standing up with a groan, Aizawa looked over the area before he moved to the sound of a groan from the point of ground zero, taking notice to the weakly thrusts of a geyser over the area. All Might heard a cough to his right that Eraserhead also heard. Moving to the source, they stared at the sight of Izuku shoving a pillar off of himself with a groan. Allowing his fire to extinguish itself, he stood up with a wince. Looking to right leg, he winced at a steel barb stabbing into his thigh. Grabbing it, he gave a cry of muffled pain before he tore it out, giving out a cry as All Might and Eraserhead ran to his side, helping him stand as they moved to the stairs where the general stood in shock at Izuku. My God, look at this mess, giving the man an incredulous look. They were about to climb the stairs if not for a girl's voice echoing down to them. Uncle Kakashi, are you all right? Looking up to the beauty at the top of the stairs, this was the first meeting of Izuku Midoriya and Momoyaruzu. Setting himself down onto a bed in the medical ward of the base, Izuku stared at the ceiling while All Might sat to his right, a look of contemplation on his buffed-up face. Sitting in silence for a good minute until the hero spoke with a raised hand. Let's do that as a last resort, giving All Might an incredulous look. Izuku went to speak until Eraserhead spoke from the doorframe. Actually, he had perfect control. I just didn't think my erasing quirk would backfire like that. So I'll take full blame from this, giving the underground hero a look of deadpan. Shoyuta gave one back before he left to his sleeping bag. Whatever, I'm tired watching the man wrap himself like a cocoon. The two shared a look before All Might spoke. I take it you want me to stick around here? Seeing All Might smile gave Izuku all the answer he needed. I don't really know my way back to the city from here, giving the teen a look. The two burst into laughter, making Izuku and Toshinori to groan at their injuries, reminding them of the bandages wrapped heavily around All Might's muscled forms being. How are you doing without that thing leeching off of you? I feel lighter if that's what you're asking. Feels good to breathe and eat clearly again, nodding while sitting back. They were about to relax until a voice spoke to Toshi, who craned his head to the voice approaching. Mr. All Might? Turning to the girl near Izuku's age, the teen immediately had to fight his blush down at her soft features, giving her a serious yet cute look. Have you seen General Jirachi? Giving the girl a smile, Toshinori spoke. Yaoyorozu. No, I don't think I have. I will however inform him when I do, giving a nod. The girl was about to leave before her eyes were glued to Izuku's very chiseled body. The advantages of having a fire-based quirk such as his, baby fat and normal fat, burn away into muscle mass, which left him the satisfying sight of the blushing girl before she shook her head. Seeing Izuku staring at her in amusement, she bowed deeply. My sincerest apologies, I did not mean to stare. I'll take my leave. Watching the girl leave, Toshinori turned to Izuku, who was losing his battle of keeping his blush down at the girl, making Toshi laugh at his predicament, before he winced at the burns. Stepping to his home's front door with a wince to his shoulders, Izuku was about to reach for the doorknob before it flew open to show Karsuki glaring at him in annoyance, making Izuku backflip to avoid the boom punch Katsuki threw. Fucking Christ, Izzy. What were you thinking bringing a volcano nearby? Giving Katsuki a look, the blonde bomber was about to burst a vein until his mother came to the door and threw a frying pan at his head. Calm the fuck down, brat. Izuku, your dinner's on the table, giving the older female Bakugo a nod of thanks. He turned to Katsuki to give him a clear answer. All Might took me to a Quirk testing base just outside of the city. We were far enough to be no hassle. So how did you know I went all out? Seeing his friend give him an incredulous look, Katsuki spoke with his hands in the air. The entire city was shaking, DKU. Blinking as he followed the blonde inside. The TV was showing a news report about minor property damage all around. Making Izuku wince while rubbing the back of his head. Clicking his tongue, he spoke softly to himself. Yeah, last resort. Moving to sit and eat, he set his bag down with a wince, rubbing his right side and shoulder. Mitsuki and Inko took notice of his actions as he sat down. Izuku, what happened at the base? Turning to his mother with a reassuring smile, he was about to answer until Katsuki spoke while eating. He brought a volcano while testing his limits. Giving his friend a look of betrayal and annoyance, Inko froze in surprise while Katsuki glowered as his mother gave him a small glare. What in the world happened? Sighing while setting his utensils down, Izuku explained the situation. It all made sense to them at the mention of Eraserhead erasing his quirk, along with his controlled summoning of a volcano, which led to those present getting nasty burn. Would have been worse if the heat-proof glass had broken. Wow, so you're like a magma version of Endeavor, giving a groan at the man who gave Izuku a feeling of dread. Izuku shook at the thought. Me like that man. I'd rather be liked than respected through fear. His collateral damage ratio will get him in major trouble one day, scooping up his favorite food. Izuku's mind drifted to the girl, Momo, before he turned to his mother with a smile. I met someone else there. Seeing his mother and Katsuki turn to him in surprise, Inko spoke. Oh really, who? I managed to talk to her before leaving with All Might. Her name is Yoroza Momo. She's going to UA like me and Kaken. UA approaches, giving out a grunt of effort as he dragged a large sledge of trash with All Might. Izuku pulled with all his strength in preparations of the UA exams, with All Might assisting his mission to clear the once beautiful beach to its former glory. With the two side by side hauling trash to a garbage truck waiting to take it to the incinerator at the local dump. This started 3 months ago, with All Might regaining lost muscle thanks to his injuries, and Izuku sporting more muscle over his athletic build. Giving one more push to the truck, the two stepped back with Toshinori turning to the beach with a satisfied smile caused by the scene before him. Beside him, sitting himself on a mound of now clean sand, Izuku breathed heavily with a smile at the sight. Already few people were visiting the site, some even picking up leftover trash the two had missed. Turning to Izuku with a proud smile, All Might spoke. You sure you don't want my recommendation for UA, young Midoriya? Seeing the living volcano turn to him, he gave a grin as he stood up. And missed the chance of proving my worth. Raising a hand with a smile, Izuku's arms and head erupted with green flames, the glove over his hands growing brightly in excitement. Like hell, I'm taking the lazy route. Giving out a small laugh, Toshinori suddenly perked up at an alarm from his pocket going off, making him reach in and bring out his tiny phone. He froze at the time, with Izuku frowning. Midoriya, you currently have 4 hours to get ready for the UA exam. Gawking at All Might with his eyes bulging, Izuku went into a panic. Looking for his shirt, he unknowingly burnt to ashes. Standing out front of you, with a smile of pride, Izuku held a bag on his right shoulder. Admiring the sight, Izuku went to walk until he was brought into a headlock, followed by a noogie from Katsuki, who had a large, dangerous grin on his face. IZZY, you fucking made it. Made me think you chickened out. Shoving his friend away with a laugh, the two stared at the Hero Academy with a reverence. We're finally here. Turning to Izuku with a grin, Katsuki gave him a hard pat on the back, his excitement nearly bursting out of his being. You fucking bet we are. Standing in place for a good minute, Bakugo spoke while moving forward to the entrance. Well, let's go blow shit up. Yep, moving to follow his friend, he failed to lift his right foot enough. Izuku would have cursed up a storm that would have made Katsuki proud if it weren't for his body to stay in the air. Gaining the attention of Katsuki as he stared at the girl beside Izuku, who was midway of tripping to the floor. "You all right?" Turning to the owner of the voice as he was pulled up, allowing him to see the girl beside him with clarity. Standing with a short yet slender feminine build, the girl beside him had large round, brown eyes that was mimicked by her hair that was bobbed and curved inwards at the ends, two longer clumps taking the same shape on either side of her face, and short bangs that reached roughly a quarter of the way down her forehead. Seeing her smile at him, Izuku corked his body to be upright, smiling at her in return, which gained him a heavy blush from the girl, while Katsuki stared at the scene in surprise. "I'm doing fine, thank you." Giving a nod, the girl smiled shyly, walking forward with Izuku watching her leave. He stopped suddenly as he noticed Katsuki smiling like a Cheshire cat. "Is that this Momo you mentioned?" Giving his friend a deadpan, Izuku spoke. "No, Momo has raven hair," and a more desirable figure moving past Katsuki as he frowned in thought. He shrugged and followed. It was sitting through present mix introduction that made Izuku and Katsuki lose the excitement, the man on the stage trying to get them all to cheer. Dead silence was all that greeted him, with Izuku dozing off to pass the time before they were all ushered to the fake city, Katsuki being called to another starting point, leaving Izuku among strangers. Looking around in silence, he shrugged and sat down to perform push-ups. Making his muscles wake up for preparation, he ignored the many wolf whistles from the girls nearby. Going on to his 20th push-up, a set of feet stepped into view. Looking up to the boy in glasses, the boy spoke. "I must ask you to stop being distracting to others. It is quite unfathomable." Standing up with his hands jetting fire out of his palms, Izuku noticed he was half a head taller than this dude. "I do this as a stretch. It wakes my muscles up." Looking around to the various girls around him, he cleared his throat while turning back to the boy who had a half-convinced look. "I didn't think I'd get that reaction from girls, though." "Well, please reframe fro and start." Looking up to present Mike on the intercom, the two shared a glance before they bolted forward from the confused crowd, making some follow them ahead while the others stayed in confusion before they finally took notice. Rushing beside the glasses-wearing boy, Izuku looked ahead in time to see a two-pointer crash down ahead. Aiming weapons, Izuku made a small jump to avoid a cannon shot. Failing to dodge the other, it exploded into a cloud upon impact, making the boy stop in alarm. Moving to check on Izuku, the boy shot out of the smoke cloud with his emerald flames and skull roaring in excitement. Sending a slash of green flames at the two-pointer, it exploded into molten slag, allowing Izuku to jettison himself ahead from fire at his feet. "Let's turn up the heat." Not noticing his fellow participants watching him fly, Izuku couldn't care less. He was doing what he loved, doing what he always wanted, feeling free to unleash his power with no consequences. Seeing a three-pointer, Izuku's fiery skull grinned somehow as he changed his directory, spinning himself to kick the robot. His kill was stolen by a sound wave shutting the thing down, forcing Izuku to land with a headache. Shaking his head, he turned his head to see a girl with weird ear extensions run by him. "Sorry about the headache, Ghost Rider." Perking up at the name, Izuku looked to a mirror to see his reflection and his chest bare. Shrugging at the events, he soared upward once more. Looking over the mock battlefield below him, Izuku noticed a blonde firing a laser from a belt. Taking down a three-point, the blonde failed to see a four-pointer behind him until it was above him for an attack, which gained the boy's attention as he froze up, watching as the attack zoomed down upon him. If only it did. As Izuku came flying into sight, shoulder checking the offending arm into molten slag, spinning with a jet of emerald flame melting the metal of the robot, he dropped down to help the teen up. "Hey, how's it going? You good?" "I am doing well. Thank you for the save." Monsieur Flam Tet moving to speak his confusion of the teen, they both spun as a three-pointer dived down for another attack down the mock street. Moving to attack, the blonde took large notice of Izuku's glowing, beating heart within his chest, the glow increasing as his green flames came back. Staring at the menacing sight of a fiery skull, The blonde gulped before he turned to the robot as it approached them, readying himself to send a nasal laser. The blonde and Izuku sent out two blasts at the robot, one half exploding, the other becoming a molten slag of metal. Turning to each other, Izuku raised a fist to the teen, who understood the gesture and gave it a fist bump. Nodding, Izuku crouched low before jetting himself upward like a rocket. Hovering a minute, he saw a target and shot down with an elbow glowing red-hot, severing the machine in two, showing a muscled red head mid-swing to attack, showing sharp teeth in his mouth as he gawked. As Izuku stood up, brushing a bit of metal off of his shoulders, he turned to the red head to give a thumbs up. "Sup? I had that handled, but thanks for the assist." Nodding to each other, Izuku was about to fly upward until he stumbled. Looking around for the source of the earth shaking, he and the red head spotted the zero-pointer lumbering into the city. Moving to get into the action, Izuku suddenly fell to his knees, vomiting glowing blood that steamed on the ground, startling him and the red head, who was about to run to safety. Returning to Izuku's side, he too noticed his heart beating far too fast in his chest, the organ glowing intensely as Izuku puked up more blood, enough to shut off his quirk forcibly. "Hey, you okay?" Moving to help Izuku stand, he noticed the blood evaporating quickly as Izuku held his chest with a grunt. "No, that's never happened before." Growling at the pain, the two made it out to the main street. Seeing the crowd of attendees, he noticed the glasses speedster running by. Seeing Izuku vomit blood, he froze in shock as his heart glowed in his chest, making Izuku clutch his chest with a wince. "Hey, don't worry, I got ya, you manly son of a gun." Hefting Izuku onto his shoulder, they both stopped and turned at the sound of a pain-filled yelp. Turning, they spotted a girl on the machine's warpath. Staring at the sight, Izuku scowled as his eyes glowed emerald. Turning to the red head, he spoke. "We gotta help her." Seeing the red head give him a look of shock and awe, he turned to the zero-pointer. His fear turned into sheer determination. Moving to help Izuku stand, the emerald flame stood shakily on his own feet, his heart glowing brighter as he forced his flames to ignite. "Throw me," then rushed to her. Growling in pain as his heart rate increased, the red head was about to do so until he hissed as Izuku threw up blood, making the flame user yell in anger as his flames increased in intensity. Ignoring the red head lift him up with effort, he spoke. "So manly." Tossing Izuku into the air, the red head was on the move. Failing to notice Izuku's flames sputtering as he soared into the air, Izuku made a last-ditch effort as he raised a right hand back to punch, recalling All Might's advice for one for all. Clenching his muscles, he failed to notice his body ignite with emerald lightning as his right arm bulged with muscle. Gritting his teeth as a cloak of fire surrounded him, he sent the punch ahead of himself on instinct, followed by a large, fiery astral arm the size of a bus, sending the zero-pointer in pieces, leaving Izuku in the air in shock as his flames extinguished themselves, followed by him looking down with a yell of horror as his flames only sputtered. "Yulshiyite." Bracing himself, he felt a slap and an arm catch him from falling. Rubbing his face of the unintentional bitch slap, he turned to the two who had saved him, the redhead and gravity girl, from his arrival, the two smiling at him in reassurance before they grimaced at the state of his arm. Turning to see the damage, he sucked his teeth in as the sunburn-looking damage his arm took. "Least I'm not coughing up blood anymore." With that, the three sat down to rest, with Izuku looking to his arm as it slowly lost the sunburn markings. Wincing at its previous sight, Izuku leaned back to talk with his newest friend, the redhead, Kirishima Ijuro, and the gravity manipulator, Uraraka Ochako. The three sharing a laugh at the sight around them, with Ijuro sharing his quirk, with Izuku taking mental notes. Moving to get up, the sight of an elderly lady approaching them made the perk up. Oh dear, you three were at the zero-pointer, right?" Giving the heroine recovery girl a nod, she approached Izuku to assess his right arm, surprising her as it showed to be slowly healing on its own. You seem to have a minor healing factor from your quirk," giving Izuku a candy with a smile. Izuku noticed Ochako wince as her right foot was held gently by recovery girl, the heroine giving it a smooch to heal the damage, turning to Ijiro, who politely declined. "I'm good." Giving a laugh at the look he got from the elderly lady, the three were ushered to the locker rooms to change into their spare clothes in case some of them were damaged. Stepping out of the men's locker rooms, Izuku was about to meet up with Katsuki until he turned to a familiar voice. Izzy. Turning to the feminine voice from a stairwell, Izuku smiled immediately at seeing Momo leap into his arms. Giggling at him, he set her down. What was that fire thing you did on the zero-pointer? The smile he gave her made both their days as they left UA. Izuku explaining what he could, that astral arm thing the first time he ever used it. Though the mood was ruined unintentionally by Katsuki asking who the cheerleader was upon seeing Izuku speaking to Momo. Though the three barely noticed Tashinori watching them with a smile as they left UA, the trio sooner joined by Ijiro and Achiko, with Katsuki once more rudely addressing them until Izuku gave him a gib slap to the back of his head. Damn, his mother really liked that NCIS show whenever it was on TV. Results of Heroics. Epic Pop, All for One, by Hidden Citizens and HAL. 1 week had passed for Izuku, and he couldn't keep himself still long enough to fully process the UA letter. His mother, the ever-lovingly proud mother, was jumping up and down with her son as he cheered to the roof, the two crying tears of joy. And when he had received a call from Tashinori to meet him at the beach they had cleared, he spoke a goodbye to his mother, prompting him to call Momo of his success of entering, followed by her excitedly yet gently congratulating him as he made his way to the beach, smiling as they promised to talk tomorrow. Izuku noticed All Might in his smaller form watching the moon in the sky. The man turned to Izuku, who landed beside him with a grin. One he mimicked as they sooner sat down with food between them, the two simply celebrating the moment. So, I see you made friends yesterday, Ijiro Kirishima and Achiko Uraraka. Good taste. Giving Tashinori a side-glance smile, Izuku spoke. Yeah, Momo was there as well. The moment I got out of the locker room, she legit jumped on me in excitement, looking down to his right hand now. He frowned as his mind went back to the fiery astral arm at the exam. Hey, Tashinori. Turning to his successor with a raised eyebrow, Izuku spoke. Any idea why my fire went all weird? Raising a hand, he expected his green fire, only to jump as a spectral arm of green fire ignited in the air beside his head, nearly smacking Tashinori. That's definitely new. Can you still use your normal flames? Looking at the spectral projection, Izuku looked to his arm before it ignited with its usual green fire, forcing the spectral arm to vanish. Looking to All Might, he nodded. It seems I can switch between them. Seeing All Might nod, he reached for a bag of chips the two bought to munch on, Izuku following his actions with his stomach growling for food. Eating the chips in silence, the two relaxed as they enjoyed the night sky of Dagoba Beach. Reaching a hand to pat Izuku's back, Tashinori was about to speak until his phone pinged, making them both perk up. Seems the new guy got my contact's number. Reaching for his phone, Izuku spoke. New guy? Turning to his successor, Tashinori spoke. Oh yeah, it seems I wasn't the only one to be accepted as a teacher in UA. After your showcase at the base, Aizawa refused literally to be near you, saying, and I quote, my eyes couldn't blink for days after that heat stroke. I am good. You left quite an impression on him, and they had to hire someone else. Looking to his phone, Tashinori frowned in thought. So who's teaching alongside you? Midnight, Sir Night Eye. Who? Turning to Izuku with a sigh, Tashinori spoke. Hasn't told his name. All we got from him is his hero name. Headcase. Used to be a vigilante with a very high body count. Why Nizo hired him is beyond me. Blinking at the name, Izuku looked to the ground in thought before he perked up. Wait, the Headcase, the vigilante whose quirk specializes in warping reality, driving the target to near insanity? Turning to Izuku with a curious frown, Tashinori spoke his question with full interest. You've heard of him before me? Yeah, I made a profile of what I could scavenge over him on the internet. His quirk is literally broken on the fact he can make anything reality for an hour or two. Bringing out a notebook from somewhere, Tashinori was shown a page with little written into it, a makeshift sketch of Headcase, showing the figure in a jacket designed like a straight jacket, sporting a pair of jeans with a bandage loosely wrapped around his right thigh. The figure's face was obscured by a white face mask, showing it painted with jester diamonds and stars on the left and right eye respectively. Shivering at the sight, Toshinori spoke to Izuku with a voice of fear. And we have to be around that thing tomorrow. Sitting in silence, Izuku gulped as he stared at the sketch before he closed it and set it somewhere. Packing all his gear in a hurry now, Izuku spoke back and forth with his mother as the morning progressed. Izuku, did you pack your hanky? Giving off a chuckle at his mother's worry, he zipped his bag up to turn to his mother with a small smile. Yes, I got everything packed. Mom moving to hug his mother. Izuku was about to leave until his mother called out to him. Izuku? Turning to Inko Midoriya, she gave a proud smile only a mother could give. You look awesome. Right now, smiling at his mother, he rushed to give one more hug for the day. I got it from the best. See you later. Mom closing the door behind him, he made a mad dash to UA. All he needed to do is find his classroom of 1.A. Moving through the hallways with a pace, Izuku found his class with a slide, nearly passing it. Stopping to marvel the door's size, he sighed, while fixing his clothing from all the running. He opened the door to immediately hear Katsuki and the glasses-wearing teen arguing about putting feet on desks. Sighing at Kakin already showing his arrogance, the blonde noticed Izuku instantly. Sitting up, he gave a lazy wave to Izuku as he entered. Yo, Izzy, took you long enough. Approaching Katsuki, Izuku noticed Ijiro, who gave a two-fingered salute from his assigned seat. Hey, Izzy. Giving a wave, Izuku shoved Katsuki's foot off of his desk, making the blonde bomber yell at the sudden action of his friend. Turning to yell at Izuku, he noticed Momo approaching them with a wide smile, his eyes shooting to a midget who gawked in shock as Momo literally jumped at Izuku with a hug. You made it, Izzy. Laughing at the teen's blushing face, Katsuki grinned at the sight, making him lean back with the two separating as Izuku's blush settled down. You excited? Giving a smile at Momo, Izuku spoke. I'm trying not to explode right now. Seeing Katsuki and Momo stare at him in alarm, he spoke with his hands raised in alarm. Not like I'm going to. Sheesh, I may have the tendency to bring a volcano to me, but I'm not that bad in controlling it. Seeing the two relax, he spoke with his hands raised. I'm not that bad. Hey, you made it. Turning to the voice of Achiko, Momo immediately gave the girl stare as Izuku smiled. Uraraka, so we're in the same class? Seems like it. I tried to find out on the roster, but they wouldn't let me look. Giving a shrug in agreement, the glasses-wearing teen approached Izuku, making the emerald volcano blink as the teen merely bowed in apology. I wish to apologize for how I acted on the entrance exam. Standing up straight with a serious look, Izuku had his mouth open as he tried to think of a reply. He turned to Katsuki and Momo for any help. Seeing them both shrug, he turned to the teen, who decided to introduce himself. I am Ida Tenya. Moving to speak, the door slammed open, loud enough to draw the entire room's attention, making them all stare at the doorway. It seemed whoever had done so had left until a figure stepped through, making those who recognized the individual pale as his sickly yellow eyes stared at them through a skull mask that had seen better days. Behind the mask, a ponytail of blood-red hair stood proudly. A tattered scarf sat wrapped around the man's neck, tucked into the collar of the straight jacket over his figure. The man's steel-capped boots made no noise as he stepped to the white board of the classroom. Cracking his neck, the door shimmered before slamming shut with a static effect. Raising a hand with a texture appearing in his hands, the man wrote down a name with an eerie heading. Headcase was all the man wrote down before he dramatically turned to the group, with Izuku moving to Momo, the girl blushing at noticing his actions as he moved his left arm protectively to her, and Achiko. Staring at the teacher in silence, the man spoke with a quiet yet serious tone as his eyes scanned the rest of the classroom. Please, take a seat. Not really expecting the voice from what one would call a serial killer, the group moved to their seats, waiting for them all to be seated. The man crossed his arms in silence before he once more spoke. Underneath your seats are a set of UA gym clothes. Put them on and head to the P grounds. Also, to the midget with grape hair pointing to the fear-frozen kid, Headcase spoke with an eerie glare in his voice. If I see you gawking at another female student, I will not hesitate to add a pervert to my body count. As for the rest of you, please do as instructed. With that, the vigilante Headcase left the classroom, with Izuku reaching down to retrieve the clothes perfectly folded. Stepping onto the field with his small group of friends, Izuku stood beside Momo and Katsuki as Headcase stood in wait with his arms crossed. We will be doing a quirk apprehension test. Seeing the class give him odd looks of confusion, he shook like he was silently laughing before he steeled himself. What about the ceremony and the guidance counselor meeting? Turning to Achiko, who had been the bravest to speak, she shrunk as Headcase turned to her in silence, showing her eyes of amusement as he shrugged. I don't really know how Yue does shit around here. I'm just doing what the little runt told me to. Turning to the class, who flinched at his stare, he stared at them for a minute before he burst into laughter, confusing them all as he snorted. Oh God, you all look so terrified of me. Giving the man a look of worry now, he gave a grunt as he forced himself to stop laughing. Sorry about that outburst, a little downside of my quirk. Anyway, line up for the test. You'll be doing the softball pitch, the standing long jump, 50-meter dash, blah blah blah. Can't be bothered saying the rest, so here's a banner with the list on display. Reaching into the air, a golden banner appeared, with said list on display with a shimmer. Bakugo Katsuki approached the first challenge, seeing the man's serious persona crack as he made an overdramatic gesture to the pitch. The class were unsure of this man as he stood straight once more. Instead of the usual throw, use your quirk this time. Aim for the family jewels. Grunt, giving the man a look. Katsuki looked to the softball in his hands before he got into a stance, watching the teen throw with an explosion, sending the ball into the air. The teacher held a set of binoculars over his eyes while a meter floated beside his head until he grabbed it and took a look. 705.2 meters, a new record. Turning to the class while raising the device, he spoke. This is a rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation. Giving a hum, Izuku heard a voice speak in the class. Wow, that looks like fun. Noticing Headcase twitch at the word, Izuku frowned as the man's body twitched. Let this be a bit of advice for whoever said this was fun. Seeing the class turn to Headcase, the man's eyes glowed beneath his mask as his hands were held behind his back, tilting his head like a dog. He spoke with his voice switching between a serious man to overly excited childhood. Being a hero is a serious job. Hitting baddies is a bonus, but also be sure to think of the innocent that could become collateral damage. Unlike that fiery bitch face Endeavor. Always gotta be the greatest, always the strongest, always the smartest. Can't seem to be the smartest though. The life of a hero can be both serious and dangerous, so be sure to be ready for anything. With that, the man rose into the air on a piece of concrete fashioned into a platform. Showing his control returned, Headcase spoke with a butler's bow of amusement. Welcome to the Department of Heroics. For the one with the lowest score, I will expel with no hesitation. I'm still looking at you. You little grapist. Getting a squeak from the little pervert. Izuku gave the little thing a glare at noticing him staring at Momo's legs. Seeing the teen look at him, Izuku glared as his emerald fire ignited with a growl rising from him, unintentionally burning his gym shirt. Turning to the test as Headcase floated above, the man was now sitting on a beach chair drinking from a smoothie. Let's get this show on the ROAD. Just a dash of insanity. Minoru Mineta, if I see you slacking off again, I'll RIP off your arms and beat some proper manners into you if you so much as glance at a female student with that grin again. Giving the pervert of the class a look of annoyance as he was the only one to be doing push-ups, with Headcase keeping a glare aimed directly to the little imp as the entire class, after doing the assessment of quirks, were now running laps after finishing earlier than expected, and right now, Izuku, Achiko, Ijiro Katsuki and Momo were running on the tracks. Some of the other students enjoying the training of the smallest student of UA. It made it more funny when Headcase circled the pervert with a revving chainsaw, letting out growls with each rev of the saw. Mineta cried in horror as he continued his 500 push-ups with renewed vigor. And to put it into more interest, the man had set up a dance floor, labeled muscle stretching. The pink-skinned girl known as Mina Ashido excelled at that method of training. It didn't help she was flexible as Dam flew through the training ground. Sparing a glance to Momo as she huffed in the jog, they all jumped as a handheld air horn blew through the stadium, making all turn to Headcase, who stared down at his watch. Flicking his hand holding the air horn, he now held a megaphone. All right, my pretties, grunt. Your curriculum sheets will be at your assigned seats in class. Get them and have the rest of the day off." Hearing this, Mineta was about to cheer until a hand clamped down on his head, making him whimper as Headcase gave him a dangerous glare. "You, however, will be writing reasons why you are in trouble the first day of UA, as well as explaining to your parents of your unacceptable behavior." With that all, but those two left to the showers, ignoring the pain and fear-filled screams as Mineta begged for mercy. He was given none. Stepping out of UA with a fresh pair of clothing, Izuku sighed while running a hand through his damp hair. He flexed his quirk to speed dry his hair. Moving to step forward, he felt Momo jump onto his back with a yell of surprise, making him smile as he steadied himself. "Izzy, you're so warm," tensing up as the girl cuddled up to him with a contempt look. Izuku had a heavy blush on his face. Stuttering up a storm of embarrassment, his saving grace came in the form of the least likely of people. "Midoriya?" Turning, the duo spotted Headcase approaching them, holding a clipboard in one hand. Izuku gulped at the man's eerie eyes turning to them. He stopped to notice Momo on his back, the two blushing deeply. "I guess I'll wait tomorrow for a private chat." Moving to leave, Momo hopped off of Izuku's back. "I can wait." Giving the girl a look, she gave a shy one back to Izuku as Headcase looked between the two before he spoke. "I won't take much of your time. I just want to check something about your quirk. From what I heard and saw you, I have suspicions." Giving the teacher a look, he gestured for Izuku to follow him, which led them to the secluded office of Headcase, which held a large, very imaginative poster of Midnight in her hero debut outfit before she was forced to change it. Staring at the sight, Headcase pulled a blind down to cover it with a decent cough, making Izuku snap out of it as Headcase sat at his desk, gesturing for Izuku to sit. The two sat in a second of silence until Headcase spoke. "Do you mind if I ask which parent you inherited your quirk from most?" Perking up at the odd question, Izuku looked down in thought before he spoke. "I would say it's a mix of my mom and dad's. He can breath fire, which explains mine, and the fact I can attracted fire to myself like my mom can attracted small objects to herself." Stopping suddenly as an old sword was placed on the desk, Izuku immediately knew what it was. "While that's the sword of the hero Heatwave. It was said to have gone missing after the hero's disappearance." Turning to Headcase as he ran a hand gently down the blade, rusted and worn from age, it somehow gave off a shine even in its old state. "How'd you find it?" Giving the teen a look, the man spoke with an air of reverence as she stood up from his chair. Walking around his desk, he held it with both hands while moving to a window. "I found it in my father's attic when he passed away. He was given it after Heatwave's final battle against Aqua Ring." Turning to Izuku, he gripped the handle tightly, causing it to expand, showing vents in the center. Only nothing happened. Simply an expanded sword with vents. "I want you to try and use it. Focus your quirk into the blade and feed it life. You succeed, and my suspicions are correct." Holding the sword out to the teen, Izuku stood up and approached the man whose mental state was questionable. Looking to the handle, he took it firmly, before he froze as his vision swam with flashing lights of gold and red before he found himself staring at a broken landscape. Buildings washed away from crimson water colliding with black flames. Staring upward, Izuku found himself staring at a man who stood proudly, his hands holding the blade like a noble knight. Watching the man turn to him, he gave a faint smile before he turned and swung his sword at a shield of water, trying to bash him away. Followed by Izuku gasping as he stumbled back, the sword in his grip tightly, the exhaust roaring with fire like a jet engine. With Headcase giving an approving growl as he stood straight. "What the hell was that?" Turning to Headcase, the man held his hands behind his back. "I found Heatwave's family." Approaching Izuku with a careful step around the scorched floors, the teen instinctively shut off the flames from the sword, allowing Headcase to place a hand on his shoulder. Giving him a stern look, he spoke. "Izuku, I'm going to have to ask you keep this a secret from all but your mother and whoever you trust." Pointing to the sword, he continued. This has brought more enemies than Heatwave, and you now have a responsibility to uphold his legacy." Standing up, Headcase spoke with a saddened voice. "What is this to you?" Looking up to Headcase with his own suspicions growing, the teacher spoke. "It's a family heirloom, and it seems my family tree has grown to an extent." Giving the man a look of horror mixed with shock, Headcase gave a chuckle. Good to meet you, nephew. Following Momo with a conflicted look on his face, the two left Yue with Headcase in his office. Admiring the poster of Midnight, he turned to leave. Until he noticed the form of Midnight leaning on his office's doorframe. Crossing her arms under her bust with a mischievous smile, she looked to the poster of herself before she smiled at him wider. Care to chat with little Oelmi? Staring at the woman for a minute, Headcase gave a shrug before taking off his shirt, seeing Midnight close the door behind her. Back to Izuku, he had recovered from his shocking revelation of meeting a long-lost uncle. He wondered how his mother would react to the news until he felt Momo brush against him. Snapping him from his thoughts, she spoke. You're mumbling. I think my new uncle is a psychopath. The confused look he got from Momo made his statement all the more ridiculous. Hero school life. The bar was for the most part less than quiet, its patrons making small bouts of noise only those looking for an exciting night would make. If only those patrons weren't thugs and small-time villains. All but one whose eyes shifted to the patrons with golden eyes scanning the area with a hunter's feel to them, lingering on the waitress forms for an extra minute. Looking to the newspaper in front of them, the man sporting a set of wolf ears atop his head read a news article reading, 40 years back, with the hero Heatwave shown to be missing after an explosion set up in a science compound, with the villainous Aquaring shown to have a traumatized look on her face as she was gently guided into a police van. Setting it down, the man caught a sliding cup of alcohol to his right, where the bartender gave him a big grin while nodding to the left. Making the wolf-eared man turn to see a table sporting 4 girls, one sporting a set of bright blue cat ears with her eyes also glowing a cyan blue, all of them nodding to him with inviting smiles. Looking to the cup, the man grinned with his canines growing in excitement. Standing up to gulp down the drink, he noticed the fiery tingle on his throat. Looking at the cup, he noticed the bar looking at him in shock. What? Looking to the cup, the bartender spoke. That's the spiciest drink I have. The next rounds are on me. Getting a cheer from the patrons. The man was about to make his way to the table of smiling girls until the door to the bar opened, making all stop and stare as a man made completely of mist stepped through. Frowning as he returned to his seat much to the girls' dismay until they realized just who had entered the bar. Watching the newcomer approach the bar, the tender gave a nod of greeting to the smoke man. I am looking for able-bodied patrons looking to partake in a job. Seeing the bar tender look to the left, a group of men with evil smiles on them stared back. They came here for that specific reason. So that's what those guys were waiting for? Turning to the wolf-eared man as he sat back down, he caught another drink to down it in one go. I take it you are also here for this job? Turning to the hero-turned-villain Kurogyri, the wolf gave a large grin to show his canines growing beyond human-like. I was thinking I came here for nothing. I just want to know one thing. Turning fully to Kurogyri, the man spoke with those paying attention also listening. Who are we attacking? Seeing the two stare at one another, Kurogyri gave his answer. Sitting within the lounge room of his home with notes before him, Izuku rubbed his chin in thought as he stared at the many ideas for his hero costume, and feeling himself start to panic as finding one labeled note missing made him all but turn his bedroom into a mess, which led to him being in the lounge room. Izuku? Not even noticing his laptop on video chat, Izuku was in full focus on what the missing idea was. His only thoughts appearing was a set of heavily fireproof pants before his thoughts trailed away. Izuku. Once more not noticing the voice of Momo from his laptop, Izuku began to sort through his notes of hero ideas until Momo shouted. Izuku. Jumping at his nickname from Momo, he turned to his laptop to see the beauty herself pouting with an irritated look. About time you heard me. Was about to hang up and come there to smack you myself. Sorry Momo. Trying to find a missing hero idea I had years ago, but I can't find it or remember what it was. Seeing Momo raise an eyebrow, they rose suddenly as a look of realization appeared on her face. Oh yeah, I think I saw Headcase Sensei and your mother in the support course once actually. Your mother was showing a big smile while following Sensei. I can see where you get your smile from. Blushing at the praise, Izuku frowned suddenly. Was she holding a piece of paper? Seeing Momo nod, she spoke. Yeah, She held it like a lifeline. It was this moment two icons appeared before Momo's camera shrunk for the faces of Achiko and Katsuki to be seen. Oi, Izzy, you find that note yet? Been itching to see how it stands against my explosions? Seeing Achiko and Momo give Katsuki weird looks, he spoke defensively. What? I'm actually curious. I think my mom took it to the support course as a surprise. Momo and I were just talking about that. So that woman was your mother. Damn, I wish I had those curves. Giving Achiko a look. The poor girl blushed at forgetting to mute herself. You heard nothing. It was this moment Katsuki spoke with a curious voice. Why are you jealous? You're fine as it is. It was now Katsuki turned to blush. Did you just? Shut the fuck up. I said nothing. Get to sleep, we have class tomorrow. With that, Katsuki left a blushing Achiko and a giggling Momo. Huh. With his lack of interest to females, I was beginning to think he was gay. Chuckling at Achiko's squeak, she left a minute later, leaving Izuku and Momo once more to themselves, until Momo spoke with a wide smile. So are you still free to hang out on Saturday? Smiling at the girl, Izuku spoke. Yeah, I'm still free. I'll be sure to bring your favorite snack. Seeing Momo smile, she blew him a kiss before disconnecting, leaving a smiling Izuku as he closed his laptops before hearing the door open and close. Izuku-kun, we're home. Hearing his mom call up to him, he gathered his notes before he heard his reunited uncle call up to him from the first floor. Izzy, get down here. We got you an early birthday gift. Moving to the stairs, Izuku stared at the sight of his masked uncle and mom standing between a human-sized box in the kitchen. Moving to them, he frowned. What's this? Your gift. I had to pull a IOU to one of Power Loader's students to help me get the kinks out. Opening the box, what was inside made Izuku's eyes widen as a big grin spread over his face. U.A/Classroom 1A. Sitting within class for the afternoon class, Izuku and Katsuki sat in their seats, shaking from excitement, as they only knew one thing to happen. Basic hero training. Hell, the whole class was shaking from excitement. It didn't help. All Might's voice echoed from the hallway. I have come through the door, like a normal person. Stifling a laugh at his enthusiasm, All Might stepped to the desk with the students gushing over his hero outfit from the Silver Age. Stretching his muscles to show off, Momo snorted at their teacher before her eyes drifted to the back of Izuku, his own muscles showing through his uniform. Looking forward with her cheeks tinted pink, Mina noticed this action to smile excitedly. Basic hero training. The class that'll put you through all sorts of special training to mold you into heroes. Standing up with a sign for battle, All Might spoke in a smaller voice. No time to dally. Today's activities is this. Battle training. Grinning in excitement at this. And for that, you need these. Hearing a click to the left, the wall opened with suitcases displayed with the numbers of their seats on them. In accordance with the Quirk registry and the special request forms you all filled out before being admitted. Seeing this, the entire class cheered. Costumes. With Izuku looking to his bag with a smile. After you change, come out in ranking order to ground beta. Looking good is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Look alive now, because from this day forward, you're all heroes. Stepping onto ground beta with her fellow students, Momo and Achiko looked over their fellow classmates in search of one student. Looking to Tenya at his mech-like outfit, they shared a look before Achiko looked to Katsuki, who adjusted his gloves with difficulty due to his grenade gauntlets. Achiko moved to help him, much to his surprise, smiling at his stunned face. Katsuki gave a rare smile before Momo gasped at the last one to leave stepped onto the ground. Turning, all the girls gawked with heavy blushes as Izuku stepped towards them while fixing the dark green gloves over his hands. His upper body was bare with a pair of dark green jeans held up by a chain belt with a set of heavy-duty boots, while loosely on the chain sat pouches with flame insignias on them. And his gloves sported clawed fingers made of fireproof metal. Joining Momo's side much to the displeasure of the other girls, he gave a knowing smirk that made Momo wave a hand over her face as she blushed heavily. Well, shall we begin, my wards? Cracking his neck, Izuku's green fire ignited, testing his gloves for any signs of burning. He found none. Nodding his approval, Izuku's fire extinguished itself, Turning to Momo, she smiled at him, while the perverts of the class gave him shocked looks of betrayal and defeat. Looking good-looking to the leader as he raised a hand, Izuku admired the look with a nod. Someone must like mecha animes? Leaning away from Momo, who giggled at him. Sensei, this appears to be the same field we used for the entrance exam. Will we once again be performing city-wide maneuvers? Nope, you'll be moving on to step 2. Indoor anti-personnel battle training. Tilting his head with a raised eyebrow, All Might continued. Villains' battles are most commonly seen outdoors, but, strategically, the most heinous of villains are likely to appear indoors. Between confinement house arrest and black market deals, in this hero-filled society of ours, the most cleverest villains lurk indoors. You'll now be split into villain teams and hero teams, and face off in 2-on-2 indoor battles. So no basic training? Turning to a frog-looking girl, Izuku turned to All Might, who spoke. Practical experience teaches you the basics. Turning to a ruined building from the entrance exam as it stood in its damaged state, All Might spoke. The distinction here is that you won't be fighting disposable robots. What determines victory? Turning to Momo with his arms crossed. Can I just blow everyone away? You guess, tongue sticking out. Are you going to threaten to expel the pervert of the class like head Kasa Sensei? How do we proceed to divide ourselves into teams? How fabulous is my cape? Giving whoever asked that last question a questioning look, All Might spoke. One at a time, I don't have super hearing. Listen up. Here's the deal. The villains will be hiding a nuclear weapon within the hideout, flipping a page in the book he had. The class stared in dumbfoundedly at the sight. He's reading a script? And the heroes have to go in and take care of it. Turning to them, he held a box. Your battle partners will be decided by drawing numbers. That's how we're choosing partners? Turning to Lita, Izuku spoke. Makes sense. Most heroes from different agencies at times have to team up with other heroes in emergencies. Shrugging as Lita spoke in agreement and apologies, All Might spoke. It's fine, let's just get to it. With that followed by Izuku being paired up, his BBF. Grinning at Katsuki, who had his own grin, the two shared a bro fist with Katsuki letting off a pop of a firecrack, while Izuku ignited a small flame of emerald. Moving on, first up to the battle are these. Pulling 2 letters out, Izuku and Katsuki were called out as heroes, while the other team was Team B. Turning to the teen with half his head covered, Izuku soon caught his attention, which made his eyes narrow. What's his problem? Turning to Katsuki with a shrug, Izuku spoke. I'm fire, he's ice. Think about it with that. All those not participating followed All Might to a surveillance room, until Momo ran to Izuku, who turned to her. Good luck. Saying this, she gave him a kiss on the cheek before rushing after her crying perverted teammate, leaving Izuku blushing. Did I miss something last night? Igniting his fire to hide his blush, Izuku turned to Katsuki. Say anything, and I burn your hair off. With that, they stood in wait as the villain team moved to the building. And during their wait, the two went into playing rock, paper, scissors, with Katsuki winning the majority until All Might's voice echoed through the intercom. Hero team, are you ready? Moving into running stances, they waited for the siren to go. Boom! Rushing forward to the building, Katsuki turned a corner to slide to a stop to gawk as Izuku joined his side, slowing to a stop at seeing the entire building encased in ice. You can melt all that, right? Turning to Katsuki with a look of a deadpan, the bomber scratched his head. Stupid question. Secret family. Standing in the observation room with her classmates with Achiko beside her, Momo stared at the video feed of both Izuku and Bakugo, with the villain team being Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Looking between the two screens, Jiro Kyoka stepped to her right in curiosity. So who do you think will win? Giving her a look, Momo spoke. I have faith that Team A will win easily. Missing the look from Jiro, the musician spoke. Are you sure? Fire against ice. Quirk users usually hold grudges for some reason. Giving the petite a look, Momo hummed in thought. Looking to the screen as Izuku approached the ice, his body began glowing with each inhale before the class had to look away due to the brightness from Izuku. Stepping away from the intense heat that Izuku gave out, Katsuki smirked as he began to sweat. Looking back while putting on a pair of emergency shades, his smirk evolved into a grin as Izuku stepped towards the ice blocking the entrance. Ignoring the steam exploding from his mere heat, Katsuki waited for a moment as Izuku made a wide walkway to the door. Taking a look through the opening, Katsuki grimaced as the door had melted. Walking through the dripping water, he carefully followed through the doorway. Ignoring the sensation of cool air hitting him, he found Izuku crouched at a corner with his flames extinguished. Moving to his friend with a slide, Katsuki crouched quietly. Any plans for attack? Stopping himself from speaking further as Izuku made a silent gesture with Katsuki shrinking in the dark as Mizo Shoji stepped into view. Looking over the area, he spoke in his earpiece. You were right. They got and I'll make a search through the building watching him turn away from the entrance. His mind slowed as Izuku holding Katsuki by the right foot as he added to his momentum with his explosions. Shoji stood helplessly as Katsuki Bakugo was hurtled towards him with a grin of promised pain. Giving a grunt of pain as he was sent flying into a wall, Shoji was left dazed as his arms were trapped in capture tape. Blinking his vision clear, he blinked as All Might's voice echoed through the PA system. Mizo Shoji has been captured. Looking down to his arms, he sighed as Katsuki knelt beside him. Sorry about the hurt. Had to use what we had patting the gentle titan on the shoulder. Mizo gave a small chuckle as Katsuki rushed off with Izuku. So, you planning on distracting half and half? Stopping to give Katsuki a look, the two stopped with Izuku speaking plainly. You forgot his name, didn't you? Getting silence from the usually explosive teen, he looked down the stairs. I was half listening to the class when they were introducing themselves, giving a groan while smacking his own face. Izuku spoke with a muffle. We need to work on your social life. Getting an enraged look from Katsuki, the two flinched as the temperature dropped. The only saving grace was Izuku igniting into emerald flames before sending fire up the stairs, halting the wave of ice from getting to the. Izuku gave a roar as he forced it further back. Get to the bomb. I'll keep his attention. Getting a nod from Katsuki, he palmed the wall to the left before blowing it into debris. Climbing through the hole, Izuku's focus was allowed solely on Shoto Todoroki, who sidestepped the fire flying up the staircase. Seeing Shoto stand calmly while giving Izuku a stink eye, Izuku's flaming skull gave a raised eyebrow as he watched Shoto step away from sight, making Izuku follow upwards. He leaped up the final steps before leaning back to avoid a blast of ice. Looking to the wall as it grew weak from the sudden ice, Izuku looked back to Shoto, whose eyes stared with intensity that Izuku mirrored. Standing firmly in place, Izuku's arms caught aflame before two large arms of astral fire appeared at his shoulders, leaving Shoto narrowing his eyes before sending a surge of ice towards Izuku, who brought both his arms crossed before his face, caused the astral arms to fade and erupt before him. Making a clear path towards Shoto, who ducked to the left, he sent another wave of ice towards Izuku, who shrugged off the ice with his fire glowing bright. He went to send a slug towards the teen's face if not for a wall of ice to slow him down. Crashing through while following Shoto, who was backpedaling away, Izuku gave a war cry as he rushed forward. Seeing this, Shoto brought his left hand up with the entire room covered in ice, making Izuku lurch forward with his feet trapped. He gave a roar as his feet sizzled from the ice melting. Kicking his right foot out, he looked up to see Shoto rush at him with capture tape. Seeing this, Izuku roared as he sent a shockwave of fire with Shoto making a shield of ice between himself and the fire. Izuku swung his right hand forward with an astral arm punching the shield. Shoto for some reason gave a very odd grunt of pain, almost sounding girly with a synthesized voice crackling in there. Freeing his other foot as the room was filled with steam, Izuku rushed towards the body heat of Shoto with odd ease. The intercom came to life with all might. The bomb has been captured. Heroes win. Looking up to the PA as his fire extinguished. Moving to where he left Shoto, Izuku spoke. Todoroki, sorry about feeling his mind reboot at the very sight before him. Izuku was treated to the shocking sight of Todoroki glaring at him, with the upper body exposed to show linen wrapped tightly around the chest. The fuck? This response made Shoto scowl before encasing Izuku's head in ice. Goddamn pervert. Stepping into the prison with her handbag, Inko Midoriya and Headcase stepped towards a woman sitting within a prison visit section, with Inko smiling sadly. The two there on the behalf of Headcase, the prisoner sitting at a lunch table sporting hair so similar to hers with blue highlights in there. It was almost like looking in a mirror for Inko as she approached the glass with Headcase. "Hey, Mom. I found someone you'd want to meet after so long." Seeing the woman look up from her thoughts, her focusing fully on Inko before tears began falling from them. "Inko, is that really you?" Staring at the woman as she stood up with her lips quivering as Inko approached. "My little Inko?" Letting the woman cup her cheeks gently, Inko watched the woman's emotions play across her face. She broke down while bringing Inko into an embrace. She frowned in thought due to one thing. Why did the retired villainous Aquaring hug her like a long-lost child?